May all beings be happy, may all beings be healthy, may all beings be free from harm, may all beings of life, may all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke audio podcast, maybe a mini podcast, or a medium podcast, or a mini medium podcast. I'm DC, poohbah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, and I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable and free from economic hardship and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we're going to have a brief life in Bali without a guest. I should do a guest. Our yoga teacher has agreed to be a guest. She'd be great. She is sharp. She's from Java. And I especially asked her to talk about her religion, which is Islam. We meditate together, do yoga together. She's very cool. But that's not today. Today I'm going to talk about Shiva Buddha. Which is a big deal here. And Shiva Buddha, it's really old. And it got really strong in Java, centuries ago. I'm not researching. I'm going to give you all. There's stuff in English online if you want to know all the data on it. Or even if you want to even know the essence of it, I'm just going to tell you my experience. I do remember learning that it was strong in Indonesia and Cambodia, and it still persists here. I mean, in Bali, Buddha's a big deal in Bali. It used to all Indonesia used to be Buddhist. The biggest Buddhist archaeological site in the world is Borobudur in near Yogyakarta, and that's a great place to go to. And there's a lot to see around Yogyakarta. It's very cool. There's Hindu and Buddhist stuff, and some interesting museums, and it's a neat town. It's more sophisticated than anything in Bali in many ways. But anyway, Mako Volkel has been our guest. She flew off today for a brief visit to Japan, and she's been a teacher or the teacher and maybe a teacher at the Austin Zen Center. She's been there for 10 years, and she is moving to San Francisco with her husband, Joel. I think I mentioned this just maybe yesterday, in January, and then she's going to become the abbot of the San Francisco Zen Center, City Center, in March. Anyway, so while she was here, wanted to experience some things that, aren't on the normal tourist track, although the normal things are good to do too. And she was here 3 weeks, but could only do so much. Something like coming here for a week, good Lord, you just unpack and then, time to pack again. And one thing that really cut into her time was I got hold of Murta Ada, the founding teacher, and really the only teacher in Bali Usada, which is a sort of healing meditation thing. That I really enjoyed their retreats. And he was Vipassana trained, and he's Chinese Indonesian, and grew up around. Oh, he always had a mentor who was a Chinese herbalist or something. Anyway, so I got hold of him, and I said, I told him who Mako was. She was visiting, and because she met him, he said, well, I'm going to Forest Island, their retreat, and we start a Tapabrata 1, which is the first level of retreat for them, in 2 days. And he said, it's full, but I'll fit her in. And he gave her a discount for the... she went there on Sunday, and we picked her up on Saturday. It's in Tabanans, sort of big, beautiful country, rice field terraces type place. We always like to go to Tabanans. It's very large. I mean, for Bali, it's large. Anyway, so she spent a week there, and she just had 2 other weeks. So one thing I arranged for her was through my friend Tomas, who's been coming here for 45, 48 years, mainly living here, and doing, I came here building stuff like water systems, hydraulic pumps, helping communities with infrastructure and stuff like that. I mean, he just came as a student because he wanted to get away from riots in America back in the early 70s, anti-war riots, and there was a volunteer thing. So he got involved in a town that's sort of remote. It's the least touristy part of Bali, and my assistant Gus, who comes here like once a week when he can. He was doing it all through COVID, but now the Echo, what's it called? The Floating Leaf Echo Villa where he works is full again because we got tourists, and so he can just get away sometimes. Anyway, that's Bangli, which is one of the regencies here, and so Tomas got involved with a family there, and to him, it's his family. And now his Bali brother married a woman who got interested in Tibetan Buddhism and got a Rinpoche as a teacher, and she got involved and interested in Shiva Buddhism. And now, he didn't like that, her husband, but eventually he got into it too. And now they're both priests. They're Hindu priests, but they're sort of reform Hindu priests. And they're into Shiva Buddha. They are recognized. They happen to move to a house in Denpasar. A lot of people here have a home in Denpasar and then a place to stay where they came from. That's just very normal because you got to go back home for ceremonies, and they do that all the time. It's some people like to hire Muslims because they don't have all these holidays, and not just holidays. Somebody turns 6 months old, a baby, somebody dies, whatever. And everybody from your village has to return to it for these various ceremonies. You got just constant ceremonies and offerings and stuff. So anyway, they moved like just right next door or near the headquarters for the Bali Hindu Association or whatever it is that sort of officially recognizes what's Hindu and what's not. Like, when they first got involved, it was more progressive and more inclusive. The tendency in modern times around the world has for everything to get more tribal and exclusive. Start excluding mainly those that are closest to you. That's happened in Islam here. There's different types of Islam. There's much more open, inclusive Islam, and some of the best ones, they've been like defranchised as it gets more conservative. It's still probably the most overall the most inclusive and open Hindu, Islamic country in the world, and has the biggest population of Muslim of any country in the world. Anyway, so they're on good standing with the Hindu Association. For instance, the Hare Krishnas have been like decommissioned. They're still going, but they have to go as, if you don't get recognized as them, then you can sort of go as a social group. You got to be something here. You can't, Well, anyway, so she's into this Tibetan Buddhism. She's into the Shiva Buddha, and her husband is, and we call both of them Bhagwan. And priests, no priests here are called Bhagwan. So Tomas wanted Mako and me to come to Bali and hear about that. And we did that, and that was very interesting. And we did a puja together, which is just a little ceremony. Mainly we meditated, and she showed us a book of, it's a sort of esoteric book people don't see, of all the mudras and stuff they use, like 100 different mudras. And I don't know if that's the Shiva Buddha mudras or just the general mudras available to Hindus or what. I can't keep up with that stuff. And they had all sorts of stuff on the altar and so much symbolism. And anyway, we spent a few hours together, had a wonderful lunch. Vegetarian, brown rice, and salad, and not your normal fare here. And when I say they're sort of reformed priests, so the Shiva Buddha thing is one thing. That's not a problem here, because Indonesia was Buddhist, and when the Buddhists were sort of then it became Hindu, but it sort of absorbed Buddhism, which Hinduism did in India. And sort of saying, hey, priests don't have to be celibate. You don't have to be celibate to get enlightened. You can have families and everything. Chill out. Which I sympathize with. What happened was Hinduism survived here, and there's in a few other small places in Indonesia, and Islam sort of devoured it elsewhere, which I imagine most American Buddhists would think was a terrible thing, but actually, in many ways, it was a liberating thing, because religions get old, and you get all these things you have to do, and the women and the men have different roles and stuff. In Islam's, it's a little more simple in many ways, not so demanding in many ways. It depends on what type it is, but the women were not necessarily worse off under Islam than under Hinduism. But I don't really know the details on all that. So anyway, the Shiva Buddha thing's okay. One place in which they have to be careful what they say and do and talk about, and we were careful, and we didn't really talk about it much because it's a delicate subject, is the subject of money. Because my impression of Hinduism here in Bali is that it's a way for priests, especially Brahmin priests, and the only traditional priests here are Brahmin, to maintain power and make money. And it's very complicated. It's tied into the Banjar, the neighborhood associations, but people have an enormous amount of obligatory payments they have to make. And there's one of the first things I learned when I was here, our housekeeper, Kadek, her husband, Katut, was our first driver, who would drive us, to, sightseeing and stuff. And he took me to a Hare Krishna thing, and we went walking in this big park in town with a big Vajra in the center. And people go there on Sunday and walk around, and there's, little bits of food. We hung out by the Hare Krishna tent because they gave us bubur, which is like a porridge. And we listened to them blessing out and all that. But anyway, he liked Hare Krishna. He's not Hare Krishna. He's still going with the regular thing. But he said, they don't charge all that money. There's not all the obligatory payments. And he said, a lot of people have gone to them because of that. And he said, but a lot of people have just become Christians. Very few Hindus opted to become Muslim because of wanting to escape obligatory payments and stuff like that. I'll give you an example. We have a substitute housekeeper, and our regular housekeeper comes 3 days a week. We pay her same. Everybody comes 6 days a week, all day, and they just get this small amount of money. So right from the first, we told ours, and this is required to have the resident visa. When you get a visa, you got to show the card for your housekeeper to get it extended or whatever. Anyway, there's another one that comes on Thursdays. Cadet comes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And the reason Katut comes on Thursdays is she had lost her job during COVID, and we knew her because she worked in this place down the street, and they just didn't need her, and she didn't have any money. So I said, well, you come here. Well, work 1 day a week. Now, $14 a week is what I gave her for coming here. And that's good. That's all day pay for a carpenter or whatever, so that's good. And she would have done it for half that. So that helped her get by, and then she got another little job, and she's, she's in a better situation now. But now we don't want to let go of her because she's such a good cleaner. She's a real professional hotel worker, and Kadek never did any of that, but never worked for any foreigners or anything. She didn't know a word of English. Actually, Katut hardly knows a word of English either. She's just used to it, dealing with people. So anyway, she had to go to Singaraja up north a few hours. We're on the southern end. It's on the northern end to a Mas Nabin. Now, Nabin's a cremation. And Mas, I think it's actually called Masa Nabin or Nabin Matza. It would be Nabin Matza or something like that, meaning a lot of people, so it's really taken from the English word mass, she said there were 1,000 people. So what happens here, a lot of people, when they die, they bury them and wait till there's a mass cremation because they can't afford a single one. So they do it together. And then she told me, I can't believe this, really. She must be wrong, what each person was paying to be part of this. 50 juta, that's 50 million. That's $3,500. And it's like, you got to do it. That's what's done. And, if you want your relatives to be reborn in the right way or whatever, I can't keep track of all the stuff they believe in. Or that they don't necessarily believe it. It's like they go together like a stream, just doing these things. They're not heavy on belief. They're heavy on just doing it all, doing the ceremonies and this and that. In the meantime, the priests, you got to constantly be giving money. And I told her, that's not religion, Katut. That's business. Those are business people you're dealing with. Don't do that. Drop out. You can get cremated here a lot cheaper. And there are cheaper cremations. They're just not Hindu. But anyway, God. All right. I know this is off the track of the Buddha Shiva thing. But all right, I'm talking to another person, our landlord's son. He's got a little coffee place he started that's on the road out there. And he might sell a few things in a day, and he saves his money. And he said he might get $1 million together, which is like $70. And then the Banjar, the neighborhood group, will want it. And he has to pay it. There's some ceremony coming up. Maybe they're administering it or something. And he said if he can't, that he has to pay it. And there's various ceremonies and things. But he said when somebody dies, the whole Banjar goes to the to a memorial or something for them, or maybe it's just people see a whole group of them walking down the street with the gamelan and the kachang and the drums and everything. Now I think there's something that happens before the cremation. Some of them might be those, if they're more fancy, might be just the cremation. He said they're obligatory. He says he gets fined if he doesn't go. That's like everybody in the neighborhood. A Banjar is like a, let's see, Tomas had a good word for it. Oh yeah, I remember. I've called Banjars villages, and that's what they're usually called. But Tomas said really a better word is hamlet. Because they're not real big, and we live. Oh, I love the name of ours. It's Blanjong. Anyway, so everybody in Blanjong, he said, "Well, I have to go to these things," and he has to go, or he gets fined, and he has to pay this money. And anyway, so these people that we were with are Reformed priests. They are not Brahmin. They're Kshatriya, or whatever it is. I might be mispronouncing that. That's the warrior class, or maybe even some of the kings and stuff, their royalty. And it's very rare. Almost everybody here is Sudra, which is the servant class. Almost everybody. And, it isn't like India here, or some places have been in India. They mingle, they intermarry, and that does have consequences, but it's not like you have parents hanging their children for marrying outside of caste like can happen in India. So anyway, I tried to talk to them about that, and I talked to them about coming and speaking to our landlord and his sons and everything, because when our landlord tells me, can you pay some more rent? Can you buy another year or two? It's ceremonies he wants it for, right? I mean, he also has sons that are, since COVID, just the income dropped so much. And there's that, but he frequently talks about ceremonies, money for that. And a woman down the street, she has a nice villa, there's a whole big family living there. During COVID, I'd go by her little vegetable stand, and she'd say, could you pay in advance for some vegetables? There's a ceremony coming up. Anyway, so there are those people I know who say that the Hinduism Bali is bankrupting people. But I think almost bankrupting. The other side of that, though, is that it holds the culture together. This is such a strong culture. So you got to be careful when you want to get rid of things, not to get all revolutionary and go wiping everybody out that does something you don't like. What it is adjusting the balance, tweaking it, fine-tuning it. A lot of times small changes have big results. What it reminds me of is the mafia. or not the mafia, the Yakuza in Japan. The Yakuza in Japan does very, very bad things. And they shouldn't be allowed. There's this whole romantic thing about them. Like they walk on the sunny side so the regular people can walk in the shade. It's that bullshit. They screw people over for money, in numbers of different ways. And they're much worse than knowing people who are in gangs here, who are like normal people who are polite. But anyway, sometimes the Yakuza will get out of hand, like in Tokyo. Maybe they'll be having some gang war, or they'll go too far with some stuff, be screwing people over in some way. And so the police will have to clamp down on them because the politicians are clamping down on the police, and the police know the Yakuza almost everywhere. They're rather close. The right-wingers, the police, the Yakuza, they're the triple whammy in Japan. But you can't get rid of them. You know what happened when they clamped down on the Yakuza in Tokyo? Street crime goes up. That's right. They keep the peace. So the same way here, maybe I'm being a little too critical of, the Hindu situation here. I mean, I talked to Indonesians that feel, well, it's not too much. I can do it only because. But actually, the last one that was telling me that was Brahmin. So he's a beneficiary of it. But maybe. I don't really understand what's happening here. This is just stuff I've witnessed. All right. So after we met with our friends and heard about Shiva Buddhism and, the Tibetan Buddhism and all that, and looked around, it's a pretty nice place. They have guest houses. They've built a little community area. They're having a school in there. They're very nice people. We got there in about an hour, which is great. I thought it would be a lot further away because nobody goes to Bangli. So then we went to this place called Buddha King to meet with a high Shiva Buddha priest, and this was arranged by the sister-in-law of Bali, sister-in-law of Tomas, the woman in that couple. And so we drove there an hour and a half, which was, it was like, I always sit up front if I can, and I arranged the ride. We used Komang, our regular driver, our long-distance driver, and it's like, I call it the Bali theme park ride. It's got these little roads through villages and things, and constantly passing cars, and they're very cooperative here. So you got things coming toward you, but they slow down, and you get back in front of them and keep going, and all these motorbikes and stuff. And not too much, because we're out in the country. But, finally we get there, and we meet with them. We meet with the priest, very nice fellow, and his wife at their home, which is quite a large sort of compound. And we spend hours sitting there. We got tea and little goodies to eat. And, Mako talks about, they wanted to know about Zen. Also, the people before had asked us about Zen, our experience. So there was some give and take there. On this one, there was too. But we heard from them about what they do. And their schedule is full. He showed us the calendar. They got very special calendars here. They have all these good days and bad days and ceremony days and all this stuff. When Katrinka and I got married here, the Banjar where we used to live, Sindhu, black magic capital of Bali, we talked to a guy from the Banjar, and it was just like one day that was good for us to do it. And so we got married at the beach, and they took care of sort of the traffic. And there wasn't a lot of traffic or anything. We had 30, 40 people there, but anyway, he showed us his calendar, and they were doing something every day. And they said they could not say no to anyone. So all these people, zillions of people, thousands of people, come to them for ceremonies, for family problems, and this and that. And they'd set aside this time for us. Very relaxed, not a care in the world. But that's not unusual for Bali. But, then we see not only are they going all over Bali, which is the size of Marin County and Sonoma County and Northern California, they're going to other islands and doing things. I mean, and, it's very interesting. Then he takes us and shows us his temple area, the poohbah. Like every home has a shrine, or not only every home, every car, the Hindus, every business, every building, every motorbike. I mean, they call it the island of 10,000 temples. Baloney, it's 10 million because they use the same word. The little shrine and the bigger one. All the little ones you can call Sangha, right? Just like the Buddha Dharma Sangha. So there were all these shrines. They're sort of standing, they're standing up on like a pedestal, and they're pretty tall. Like they go up about maybe 8 feet, and they have like carved wooden, nice work boxes, and statues are mainly not statues, other things. They represent different things, This is for ancestors. This one's for Shiva. This one's, different things. I can't remember. Oh, and we saw one. Sometimes they have one for God. It's empty. Just like Islam, huh? I never heard so much mention of God from Buddhists and Hindus. And, that's because it's a 88% Islam country, and you can't get recognized as a religion here if you don't have God at the top. So Buddha's a God, and Hinduism can take its pick. I can say Brahma's a God, but sometimes there's just an empty shrine, and this is for God, Tuhan. So we had a wonderful time with them. They served us a great dinner. Their helpers brought it out, and we sit there, and everybody's eating with their hands. But they also give us utensils if we want them. The main utensil here is a spoon for eating. They're not so much into forks. I think forks are good for eating a salad, but spoons are much better for rice. Good Lord. Anyway. So we spent all day. So have you learned anything about Shiva Buddha? No, neither did I. It's all ceremony. It's all mudras. Look, Shiva is the reincarnation of what? Krishna or something, right? No. Shiva and Buddha are both the reincarnation of the same thing. It's all myth. And the reason I can't remember that now, I'd have to go back and Google it and look it up, is because I'm not really interested in myth. I'm interested in it sort of anthropologically. You know what I mean? I'm not interested in understanding in Japan the Shinto stuff, but I like it. And I'm not interested in understanding the yesterday Monet said Bali Hinduism is sort of pagan. There's a lot of animism. I'm more or less just absorb it. The priest did a malukat with us, which is a purification ceremony, and that was great. We've done them before. Katrinka and I have, but Maku never had, and it's really neat. He sits there and chants. Oh boy, did all these cool mudras. And, then there sprinkles us with water. And then there's water. They pour it in your hands and you drink it just a little bit. And they do that 3 times. And then the next time, or maybe it's the 3rd time, you put it on your face. And maybe you do that twice. And it puts rice on your head and rice on your forehead. Very similar to other ones I've been to. And he would really had some chanting stuff done. But Shiva Buddhism, I mean, it's like I said, it's ceremonies, it's mudras, it's magic, it's myth, it's believing things. And I love to visit, I love to be there, I love to meet the people, but I don't need to understand it. There's nothing there I have to remember. It's just like moving through it. It's like going through a garden. You go, oh, this is cool. I don't know the names of the flowers and the plants, but I love to be there. I love the people here, and I love the way their Hinduism, their Shiva Buddha, which is quite a big deal, quite an influence even for those who don't think about it on the Hinduism here. I love it way it holds the people together. Now, Japan is held together a lot by Shinto and Buddhism and all that, especially Shinto, I think, and their culture and all the things they do together, and their enormous social pressure, right? But Bali, they're more into it. I guess there's social pressure, but they're more into it, and the kids aren't cynical, and they're not. I never was in a country like this where you pass young men and they're friendly and polite. And the kids, especially kids from Java, when you meet kids from Java, they take your hand and put it to their forehead, because they respect adults. And so there's many, many good things. But for me, there's nothing to believe in. But I'll tell you, that's the same way I feel about Buddhism. I'm really not interested in understanding anything anymore. I just like looking at it. I heard that yesterday. Somebody said their Spanish teacher, God, who was that said that to me? Their Spanish, Andrew Atkinson. We're going to do a podcast with him. He said his Spanish teacher told him, he speaks fluent Spanish, at one point said, for things you can't control, the best thing to do is just to bear witness, just to observe. All right, now I have gone on for almost 40 minutes with all this. I did not intend to do this. And let me tell you, I'm not going to go over it. I am not going to edit it. I'm going to put a bell in. I'm going to put the gamelan music in front and behind. And I am going to go to bed, and I will join you at another time. And thank you for letting me tell you about this, tell you about Shiva Buddhism. You can read about it. Go online and read about it. That's not what Buddha is to me. But I don't know what Buddha is to me. 3 things. One is Mako did try to ask him about practice and study and sutras and that sort of thing, and it couldn't get anywhere. And when she tried a 3rd time, Tomas just said, I think we shouldn't push that point any further because it was just a different approach they had. But he did tell me that when he does puja, like meditation ceremony, that he will do it sometimes for 4 hours straight. What he meant was that he meditated sometimes 4 hours straight. Another thing is that when we left, we gave a 1 million rupiah donation to their foundation. We had inquired discreetly with Bhagwan, the woman priest who came with us, what we should do. So that's like $70. And the third is that when I say I don't believe anything, I really like sitting and meditating and bringing that into daily life. I just do that automatically. I have to make an effort to keep doing yoga and walking enough and exercising and eating right. But with sitting, I like sitting. I believe in it with my body and mind, but I don't think about it, I'm not trying to do anything with it. It's all was drummed out of me by Suzuki. So those are the things I wanted to add. Now, for the finale. This has been a Cuke audio podcast, A Life in Bali. I'm DC, poohbah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Doggy Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.